Yeah. Hello, everybody. It's Laura Ward with role play in a Zoom room with one other person. Maybe one more will show up in this time. And we are going to start with some breathing. And I was thinking of really focusing today on developmental patterns and working from the sense of the developmental pattern. So developmentally, the first thing we can do is kind of have this core distal relationship. Babies begin to reach out and in, and maybe just finding that sense in your body of stretching away from center, coming back to center. Babies are, it's a very, it's a very free flow, three-dimensional sort of movement pattern, feeling moving out and coming in. And then as we're in that, maybe starting to add the sense of the breath so that we're sort of growing and shrinking with the breath, getting bigger, expanding outward on the inhale, coming back into self on the exhale. And I'm inviting a sense of fluidity into my spine, into my body. I'm going to back up a little so that I'm not locking down. So this is the first opportunity to start releasing, consciously releasing some of the holding patterns of what it is to be us in our body, just offering in the sense of growing and shrinking with the breath, radiating away from center and coming back in. This underlying breath support that's supporting all our movement. Growing and shrinking with the breath. And I'm going to run through these fairly quick so that then we can get down onto the floor with it. So the next one we're going to play with is just upper versus lower. So it's going to be kind of like you could do it with your arms, or you could just do it with your spine, lengthening and shortening, just finding the sense of up and down in the body. So head to tail connection, upper versus lower. Finding the length in the spine. And let's add a theta breath to that. So inhale is normal. On the exhale, it's a soft S or a soft hiss or a TH sound. So tongue just behind tongue just behind the teeth. Bringing your awareness into your head-tail connection. So this does not have to just be upper lower. I kind of skipped head-tail. This can be feeling like a spinal creature. Let's go a little deeper than the idea of spinal creature, because I think sometimes when I think spinal, I think about the bones of the spine, or I'm thinking bone. Let's think about like spinal cord and brain. So like our brain is like that bulb inside there, and then our spinal cord is coming down and routing out into our limbs, our nervous system. And so awakening that sense of this really fluid, hydrated nervous system, it's bathing in your cerebral spinal fluid. So with the head tail, thinking of the bulb of the brain down, rooting through the spinal cord out into the limbs. Then any movement that arises is welcome. And if you need to change your relationship to gravity, always feel free to do that. You do not need to look like me. Allowing the legs to maybe get involved so that we're still in this sort of nervous system feeling, but really soft and alive nervous system. And that's the one thing with being seated tends to be that our legs aren't going to do a whole lot. So if there's any way to give them some freedom, I'm here on my block, but I could be on my butt, which might be easier. Babies do that lovely sit where they're just kind of there. So finding a way to enliven the limbs, core distal relationship, center to edge, and then also spinal, and finding fluidity, thinking spinal cord, or as Liz Koch says, the river of the spine, the intelligence of the nervous system, bathing the whole body. And then let's actually take it down to the floor. So if it's okay with you, getting down for the head, for the upper versus lower. So we sort of did head tail a little bit. We'll take a little bit more head tail on the floor. Really inviting the whole torso to become fluid, free, and easy, letting go of anything that is no longer serving you. So any kind of patterns that we've taken on just by existing and responding to the moment, inviting those things to get a little softer and easier and more fluid, letting your body move in any wriggly way that feels good as you're there on the floor. With, again, still thinking in this core distal, head tail, really the first sort of two patterns, or some of the first patterns. I'm not being super clear on this patterning business, but we're getting there. Breathing into it, letting your breath free up. So it doesn't need to be theta breath anymore, any kind of breathing that feels good. Just inviting the sensation of body on floor to, I don't want to say, to influence, to infiltrate, to educate, to enliven, whatever that means, sensing into the gravity of the earth and the support of the earth. We're not going to fall off. And sort of the joy of just wiggling and feeling into sensation. Maybe starting to wake up the fingers and the toes, really getting distal with that finger-toe relationship, finger-toe center. You can let them come up into the air or not. And allow your body to move in any way that feels good. So we have freedom even while we're playing with these patterns. We don't have to lock entirely into one pattern or another. Just feeling into that sort of tentacle octopus intelligence of the digits and the limbs, allowing that to mobilize and hydrate. I think I'm going to stay with this idea. We may get further in the developmental patterns, but we may just stick with this because it's feeling really good to me right now. And I am going to find music and share some music. This requires glasses. Too loud for you. Okay. A little bit of Michelle Aiello. Letting yourself find that core distal relationship. And allowing it to awaken. Center to periphery. Inner to outer. Any movement that feels good is interesting. Something to look into. What's going on there? adding some side-side movement or some upper-lower movement. Inviting in spirals. Thinking of the spirals like whirlpools and eddies that are happening naturally in your body. And as that's all happening, allowing sort of the layers of fascia to differentiate, so there's freedom inside on a sort of very deep, spacious level. Breathing into it. Breathing out of it. Allowing yourself also to really stretch away from center. What is it to really reach? You want to bring it back in, coming into the safety of closeness. And to really reach out and away. And to come back in. Movement, core distal, rolling around. Hey Cassie, nice to see you. I'm gonna find the next song and let us keep going with this because it feels really delicious. So yeah, allowing yourself to move in any way at this point that feels good. You can focus on core distal relationship. Feeling the life and the spaciousness and the energy between the cells. So there's this sense of expansive inner spaciousness. Another, maybe a little more breath to this one. Breath and space. And if you feel like shifting on your level so that you're coming up or going down, feel free. We're really working with sort of head-tail from the nervous system. Sort of that octopus tentacle-like movement. And also core distal, center to edges. Finding near edges and far edges. But tuning into deliciousness and what feels good. If you feel like making level changes with that, you can. Like these developmental patterns of sort of head, tail, and core distal, center, periphery, they're such rich, fertile explorations that it doesn't need a whole lot more. Moving towards deliciousness, moving towards yum, and maybe every once in a while, if you need to, take a pause. Feel into what's been going on, let it process. Uh-oh, I don't know what's going next. I don't have control. Plan. This is fine. Of my playlist. It's gotten out of hand. It's run away from me. Interior space. And allowing yourself to pour your body around. letting the contents of your body yield into gravity, yielding into the floor, yielding into the bed. If the floor is too hard, use something else. Shifting pattern now. I'm going to a little bit more organized pattern with an upper versus lower. You can stay in your exploration or you can join me. The heel rock works best if your heels are on something that they can stick to. And then you want to see if you can soften rib cage, lungs, head, and neck, and send a wave of movement rippling up and down your body. Kind of a combo of let it happen and do it. This can also be done with your feet on the floor and your knees bent with a little push. Letting your eyeballs soften in your eye sockets, letting your jaw relax. I think this is going to go to a more just inviting in that wriggle. Spaciousness, upper versus lower. You can start to maybe push pull from there if you want a little bit more, so you're feeling into the upper versus lower, or stay with whatever you're exploring. You do not need to go with my direction on this at all. But if you're seeking direction, then by all means, stick with me. Otherwise, if you're happy in there, go for it. But feeling different ways of like upper versus lower, fingertips to toes, reaching in the length of your body. Maybe there's little jiggles that need to happen in there. Yeah, I'm adding in the side jiggle, which feels really good, really recuperative from just upper versus lower. So this is adding the side, which is also adding kind of a body half, like a lizard, which is the next pattern from upper versus lower, right side versus left side, differentiating down the middle. This could also come into rolling from one side to the other, opening, closing, or on your belly, like Cassie's got it going on. You can have upper versus lower. You can have the lizard crawl. This is great for upper versus lower if you're on a smooth floor. This is going to help develop some of that arm connection to the body when you're doing those kind of pull-ins. Feeling into whatever feels good in your own body with those patterns and mixing them up. Exploring. If you have an injury or something that you want to give more attention to, feel free to roll around with that idea. So yeah, I often tend to carry a lot of shoulder tension. So if I go slower and feel into it, sometimes I can let some of that go. Releasing, rolling, letting my head fall to the floor. I'm going to put one more song on, which is the Cortha Anthony, the birth intro, the long version now that I have it. And we can play with mixing all of these things together. How are you doing? Good? you want to try some standing stuff, since we've been down there on the floor for a long time, I feel like it might be nice to end with just a little bit of standing movement, feeling what we have done using the same ideas. So like, yeah, finding a sense of freedom, letting yourself shift weight, and let yourself move in any way that feels good. If you feel like you find a pattern that's interesting to explore, feel free to stick with that. If you feel like you're stuck because of your pattern, then see if there's different ways of shifting it. It doesn't have to be like the most beautiful dance in the world. Just finding sort of patterns in your body. For this, I feel like this music has a lot of light weight for me, a lot of sort of ease. And underlying it, there's that weight, that the strong weight, kind of a balance with the flute expressing more of a lightweight, and the I'm losing my words today. The keyboard synthesizer with the strong weight. So maybe balancing that out. Bringing our awareness really deeply into sensation, into the invitation to our bodies to let go of anything that isn't serving, that isn't helping. Finding fluidity and harmony in ourselves and also within the systems of the body. No system works alone. All of them are deeply, deeply interrelated. We are all expressing one thing, each system expressing the same thing, but maybe in a different way. And letting it sort of draw into a close, maybe finding your way back into some place of stillness, or even back to your butt on the floor, or laying down, however it feels good for you. 1, 2. It's almost over. Slowly turn off the music and just come back and say thank you to all the people in TV land. And I will quit recording so I can talk to you for a second, Terry.